All right, all right, all right. Here we are. The Die Laugh Love podcast, episode number 7, Sunday, January 12th. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank everybody for taking time out of your day to sit with me, and who knows what's going to happen. But today I have a feeling that it's going to be pretty intense based on what I am getting moving into this afternoon and what I am supposed to bring to everybody. So, I want to say, first and foremost, that whenever I do this or whenever I sit with a client or do a group reading, it's always my intention to bring folks love, connection to spirit, clarity in their life. Here's a trigger warning for some of my grandmother's French. I want you to think of me as a bullshit hunter. Okay. So, when people sit with me, if you've got bullshit in your heart or bullshit in your life, Spirit sees it as an opportunity to walk you away from it, to help you find peace and clarity in whatever challenges that you have. Today, though, it's interesting because I wanted to walk into, and I want to walk into every session and every group reading and everything that I ever do, bringing joy. And I'm a big believer in what I call vitamin joy. Vitamin joy, that we have to actively seek out joy to compensate for the turmoil and the stress and the pain and the trauma that we all inevitably get in life. And I really want to bring that today. And I have a particular type of joy that I'm going to be bringing to folks today. And it's not one that is one we would normally think of. So bear with me, because what I'm supposed to do, as I'm called by spirit to do this stuff, what I'm supposed to do is kind of share with people some of the principles and some of my truths that I have picked up along the way about life, death, spirit, what happens to us when we die. And I'm a big believer in keeping things simple. So I speak in analogies, I speak in metaphors to help describe the things that I experience. And if you get anything out of this today, please take at least these little bits of wisdom with you. So here we go with some analogies, some metaphors, some descriptions about life, death, spirit, the living, the dead, all of it. So here we go. When you're alive, you are the marriage of flesh and spirit. You are a body ensouled with a soul, an eternal part of you. And I always speak to that part as that relationship as like the marriage of a horse and a rider. Your body is, by scientific definition, a mammal. Your soul is the eternal part of you that keeps going once that animal part of you or that mammal part of you dies. So when the horse dies, the rider keeps going. By a show of hands, for folks who have their video going, by a show of hands, could you show me if you can relate to the word hangry? Hungry and angry. Anybody here get hangry? Okay. If you get hangry, what that's an indication of is that you're not taking care of your horse. You're not feeding your body. You wouldn't let your animal at home, your pets, go hungry. You are not feeding your physical vessel in this world. Now, please do so. Your body scientifically needs water and rest and shelter and all of those things that an animal needs. So please give that to you. Or what happens when a horse doesn't get food or water or play or rest? It kicks the stall door down. When you get hangry, that's what's happening. You're kicking the stall door down. Now, when you die and that eternal part of us keeps going, where we go, the afterlife, the world of the dead, the world of spirit, it is not some distant, detached dimension. It is right here. So the analogy that I always use, the metaphor that I always use to describe that is like a one-way mirror that we would see in a cop show. Everybody's familiar with that. One-way mirror, right? Suspects, cops. We sit on the side of the suspects. We're pretty oblivious to what's going on the other side, but our loved ones, our spirits, and where we go when we die is on the side of the cops, where we see, feel, and know people. How many people here, by a show of hands, can say that they're intuitive? Got a good instinct. Okay. If you consider yourself intuitive, I'm a believer that what that is you have a distinct connection to spirit. So, spirit, in the way that it's with us all the time, is always sending us messages. They have what I call the 1,000 foot view. They see what we're going through. They see other people. They're in communication to other people's spirits, and they're the ones that are sending us the message. Perhaps we shouldn't go out on a date. Perhaps we shouldn't take that job, or maybe we should. But if you've ever considered yourself an intuitive person, it's because you went through some circumstances in your life where you didn't listen to yourself, where you felt a thing about a person or a situation. You got to the other side of that person or situation and you were like, God damn it, I should have listened to myself. If you've ever said that, what you're really saying is, God damn it, I should have listened to Graham. Because Graham is sending those messages to us. Our loved ones in spirit are sending those messages to us. The way it works, though, is that they're speaking to us through our emotional faculties. I believe the language of spirit is feeling. So when we feel something from spirit, what happens is it takes about a half a second to translate what we're receiving in our own voice. I will sit with clients and time and again, I will say, hey, your grandmother, your father, whoever's with you thinks that you should go to the ocean or thinks that you should go to see some live music, get some joy in. Time and again, people will say to me, I was just thinking of that. And then I have to turn around and say, I don't think you were thinking of it. I think you were receiving it. But because you don't know the relationship of how spirit communicates with us, you just think that you're getting these random thoughts. So please take that away from today. Pay attention to the things that you get out of nowhere for no reason. And those things will increase in you when you're zoning out. So when you're driving, when you're like doing dishes or you're in the shower, water definitely increases it. So pay attention to those things. Trust your gut and trust the spirits that are with you. Now, I want to talk about what happens when we all die, because this is really important. Take a person who had a really traumatic life and take a person who had a really traumatic passing. It takes them a while to get on their feet in the world of spirit, and here's why. Death, as far as I can tell, is birth in reverse. Humans are the only mammal, as far as I can tell, that takes 3 to 4 years to get going. And one of the reasons why we take a while to get going, I think, is the synthesis or the marriage of horse and rider, body and spirit. So when we die, we are newborns, but it takes us a while. So when I sit with a client, I'll always get the older dead first, the people that have been in spirit longer. It's like the difference between talking to a 25-year-old and a 5-year-old on the phone. You're going to get more out of the 25-year-old because they have a greater capacity, generally speaking, to communicate. That healing process, or as I sometimes put it, the going through the washing machine process. And this is really the important part of what we're talking about today, because today's going to be rough. Today, there's a sense of roughness here in a good way. Um, it's not all fuzzy rainbows and unicorns when it comes to this stuff. When we die, we all go through a life review. We do. We all go through a life review. We get literally a book of our life. You have had many lives. When you die, you're going to have access to all of the lives that you've led. There's reasons why we live, we die, why we forget, why we remember, but I'm not going to take up time today for those reasons. I want to talk about that life review, and I want to talk about with some visual aids what that looks like. Every every human, you and I, every human, are nothing but complicated algebra equations. And what do I mean by that? Algebra, we're a sum of our parts. An algebra equation is made up of different variables. So, I'm speaking to the group here, but I am also speaking to everybody individually. If you and I traded birthplaces, or if you and I traded fathers, or if you and I traded our best friends in sixth grade, we would be different people because we would have different variables in our equations. We're a sum of our parts. So let's say, I'm going to use some visual aids here. I got a little Herkimer diamond on my table. So let's say that this diamond or this Herkimer crystal represents your uncorrupted, unfiltered soul, the rider that gets off the horse when the horse dies. As you're born into this world, you start to build up layers. Think callus. So here you go. Here's your parents. Here's your genetics. I'm using the tarot cards to show this too. Here's your best friend in sixth grade. Here's the movies that you'd watch. Here's your birthplace, the town you grew up in, on and on and on, including your genetics. So this is the thing, or these are the things that we learn about and we understand and we heal from. Because some of these things we're born with, some of those variables in that equation we're born with, some of those variables are given to us. We'll call that baggage, the trauma and experiences that we pick up along the way. I believe the spiritual path, or a big part of the spiritual path, is figuring out what these variables were in our equation so we can get back to the wisdom of this. If you really want to see what a soul looks like, go hang out with some 3-year-olds. Go hang out with some 4-year-olds. Go hang out with kids that love and share and play and know joy. It's not too long before those kids start to get inundated by all of these. Like, some of us have it better than others. I also think that as a responsible human being, we should be figuring out what these layers are, how we can fix them, heal them, learn from them, remove them, learn to live with them, and I'll give you some examples. So if you've ever seen me in person, I'm super tall. I'm 6'7", and there's nothing that I can do about that. That height, nothing I can do about it. That is a variable in my equation, nothing I can do about it. There are other variables or other things in my equation that I've picked up along the way that I can do something about. For instance, when I was 3 or 4, I knew I was gay. I was also raised by hillbillies. I was raised in the 80s. I had these messages that being gay was bad. You see it in popular media. I heard it in my family. Any major religion at that time, and still a lot of religions today, will tell you, oh, you're an abomination before God. So coming out of the closet when I was like 27-ish, I had to confront what I would call internalized homophobia. You get raised for decades hearing that message, you're going to internalize that. Now, as I healed that part of myself, I was able to heal one of the variables in my algebra equation, making the sum of my parts better. And I will say this very frankly, one of the best things that I ever did for my family is find a therapist. Truly, get a therapist if you don't have one, because you've got variables put into your equation from your parents, from culture, from all of that, that will reduce your capacity to live a healthy life. For instance, I want anybody here on the call today, anybody here that would look at their body in an unhealthy way. So here's a thought exercise. Put into your mind, if you have it available, any cosmetic or physical part of yourself that you dislike. Is there a part of your body that you dislike? Put it in your mind. Okay. If you have something in your mind, then that is a result of the culture that you grew up in and the variables that were put into your equation. And I'll be very serious when I say this. If you were alive 10,000 years ago, you would be too busy pulling fish out of the river to feed your family than to worry about what your body looked like or the reflection that you found in the river. What I mean by that is if you do not like your body or if you do not like a cosmetic part of your horse, it is a result of growing up in a world where you would pick up a variable like maybe she's born with it, maybe it's Maybelline. You're going to hear those messages and you're going to feel like you're lacking something. And I'm going to tell you time and again what happens is people die, go through their life review, and they realize, like, wrap your head around this. When you die and you go to the world of spirit, imagine missing and loving your body, your horse, your holy vessel. But how many people spend their lives hating it because they've been taught to? That's incredibly tragic. And that's what we're talking about today is the algebra equation that we all make up. Now, I will say, as I do this work, I'm going to ask the people on this call to unmute themselves as I bring the spirit forth. Before I go much further, I do want to give a trigger warning. As much as I might struggle with that term, trigger warning. I do want to say that I do have to lend that because we're going to be talking about some deep and heavy stuff today. Okay, it's important. I have a man here. Now, before I get much further, I do want to say I ask people to participate in these readings, meaning unmute yourself so I can talk to you and I can deliver this message. If this message is too intense for you, you don't have to unmute yourself, but I think it might be appropriate for you to have this conversation. There's a really good chance that the person on the call today might not want to have this conversation with me, so I might be talking to a wall, but I have to relay this message for everybody here so they can get these perspectives. It's truly, truly important. When I make I have a lot of fun with graphic arts and doing the little images for my podcasts and, setting things up in terms of like the things that I put on social media and my website. And when I go and I produce one of these episodes, I then get ready for the next week's episode. So I have an image that I would have created for last week, and then advertising or promoting this week's episode, I would have had an image. And as I was doing that, I got the impression that I should include like a racetrack on this image, like a racetrack. If you go and you look at like episode 7 in the image that I'm using for it, there's a racetrack. Now, there's a man in spirit who wants to apologize for the abuse that he would have given people. Now, the racetrack thing, you've got to understand that as a medium, I'll get symbols and images. Those symbols and images could be figurative or literal. Okay. So this man might have actually been a race car driver, or he would have worked on like enduro cars or in a shop. I do get the impression that he was selfish and he lived too fast. There is a distinct sense that this man was selfish. Now, what I mean by that is he is talking about being a son, being a father, being like a husband, and all and where he's coming from for me is that he's really gotten through the life review, gone through all of his variables, seen those things like alcoholism, all of that, and he would have gotten to the point where he realized, like, while I was alive, I was incredibly selfish. I didn't pay attention to people. I hurt people through neglect. I hurt people. Actually, he might have hurt people through abuse because I'm hearing the word belt. And that's where I have to give everybody the trigger warning here. Like, like physical, mental, emotional abuse, they're all incredibly painful and traumatic. And this man wants to come through and apologize for it. So now I'm going to ask if there's anybody out there. I would have had somebody who lived too fast. Alcoholism, drinking, those types of things would have been a variable in their algebra equation. He's trying to apologize and also give praise to the people who would have made the best out of the situation that he would have left behind. This is somebody who is watching from the world of spirit. The people carry on in the face of his loss, but also carry on in the face of whatever trauma and abuse he would have left. So, is there anybody here who would have had a father who would have lived too fast, drank too hard, spent a lot of time in a shop, very selfish? He might have spanked you or done something like that. I have to deliver an apology. I have to deliver an apology. So I have to ask, is there anybody here who wants to come up and have this conversation? I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, please. Okay. I see a Diane unmute. Diane, does this feel like somebody in spirit for you? Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put me on spotlight and I'm going to put you on spotlight and we're going to have this conversation because this is super important because you have to understand that we're having these conversations here for your benefit, but also for anybody else that would have experienced anything like this. Can I ask you, you got some Irish, is this Irish stuff? It's Irish. Okay. So I'm feeling that this person would have had like legitimate alcoholism. Do you understand that? Okay. Now, here's something, and I want to use my height as an example. My height. I want to use my height as an example. That's a variable, a genetic variable that I can't do anything about.
I'm
And
six
I,
foot.
yeah, say it again for me.
I'm 6'1".
So you're a tall person too. All right. So there's nothing that you could have done about that. And as a tall woman, that's a variable that you're going to have to deal with. You know what I mean? Like just my sister's 6'2". So, that's always been something that's followed her through life. I really have to give you this. And this is where the joy comes from. I know because I'm talking about really traumatic stuff. And I was like, okay, I've asked to pass joy out into the world. Why is this joyful? This is joyful in this way. And I think that this is specific to you, Diane, because this is joyful in the way that there's very little justice in the earthly world, very little justice, where people will live, hurt people, die, not be aware of how they hurt, not apologize. But when we go to death and we go through our life review and we go through all those variables and we move through that, we go down, we go through our layers and we get back to the core of our spirit. And our spirit is made of love. Our spirit is made of love. This spirit would have gone into the world and then had abuse, trauma, pain, alcoholism, all of these variables. I have to under. Is this your dad, Diane? Okay. That's what I'm feeling because he needs to speak to a daughter and he needs to not only apologize, but also praise you for making the best out of him becoming a variable in your equation. You know how I'm talking about, like we're a sum of our parts? Our parents are our parts. And when we make the best of those parts, we are absolutely alchemists. We're turning dirt into gold. We're using that as not as a crutch. Now, what's interesting is I want to talk to you about this father of yours. There's a level of integrity, isn't there? The reason why I'm saying this is because this man needs me to make sure that people understand that I'm not making an excuse. He doesn't want to be excused. He wants an explanation. He wants an explanation. Like, this is an explanation. I was a sum of my parts. And then he moves through that life review and he realizes his parts and he needs to develop, like he needs to not only apologize, he needs to give you the praise that you and others, the other women that he left behind, would have made the best out of their situations in their lives. This is something that I feel like you've carried for a long time. This is an apology that is long overdue for you. So thank you. Also, thank you for having the grace already to understand that he was a sum of his parts. That when you're not angry at him, you're angry at the alcoholism, you're angry at the temper, you're angry at the man who didn't know how to take care of himself, you're angry at the man who didn't feed himself. There is this appreciation for you because what I'm talking about, everything that I'm explaining to you, and the things that you are doing in your own spiritual, mental, and emotional well being, your own path to wellness, you're an example of grace, Diane. You're an example of grace because when you understand them and you have compassion for them, it is grace. That's the definition of grace. So I need to give you that recognition. Now, what's really important, and I'm going to thank you for coming up and taking this spirit, is that there are so many people here who have been hurt by their loved ones, unintentionally, intentionally, all sorts of awful traumas have been passed on to us by loved ones. When we make the best of it and we understand that it wasn't necessarily their soul, but perhaps the pieces that made them who they were. The abuse. I keep hearing abuse. This man was abused. Do you know what I mean? This man would have had his own abuse.
Yes, I know.
Absolutely.
He told me. I know. I know.
You know. Okay.
The
So
church.
So, with that abuse that he would have had, he wouldn't have had access to the support networks and the mental health and all of the things that we have nowadays. So, he would have felt very isolated. He would have lost himself in alcohol. He wouldn't have known how to process his emotions, and he would have lashed out to the people that were closest to him. And this is so huge because what I'm describing to everybody here is hell, is hell. Hell is regret. Hell is regret, not a lake of fire where we burn for all eternity. Getting to the world of spirit, going through that life review, getting back to the core of love that we are, and going, shit, I fucked up. I fucked up. But I fucked up because of my alcoholism. I fucked up because of my abuse, all of that. When a spirit has this opportunity to come through and pass this message of apology and also gratitude for you. What we're doing is we're easing his pain, we're easing his regret, to not only have the words pass through to you, but to also understand that this man, he's evolved, he's learned, he's healed. And that's important for you because I think that you, as well as other people on this session, would have, would wonder, do people ever figure it out? Do they ever learn? Do they ever understand? And they do. It's through that life review. So that's why I'm a big proponent of figuring out what our own algebra equations are, how we can heal ourselves, because the worst thing that we will experience when we go to the world of spirit is that intentional infliction of pain. When we intentionally hurt people that we love, we look at it and we go, what did I do? How could I have done that? That's what our soul experiences. There's also the potential to learn from that and to contribute in a better way from the world of spirit. I always use the Ku Klux Klan example. The people who would have worn Ku Klux Klan capes and hurt minorities or other people, they go to the world of spirit, look at how awful their actions were, and then they step into a position of helping. There's so many times that I would sit with a client and I will know that a certain person is helping them contribute to their intuition, contribute to their life, contribute to their healing, but they don't want to hear from them. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't want to know that their abuser or their hurter was there. So the fact that you took this and you stepped into this place, I really have to give you acknowledgement of your own spiritual, mental, and emotional development and well-being. The fact that you've evolved in your own way. And can I ask you, do you know that you are a person of grace, Diane?
I don't know. I I
Well,
I just know that he was an incredible artist and musician. And I could always see in the middle of all the mess his beautiful soul. I mean, I had to estrange myself because I had two daughters and I didn't want them around him, but it was never in anger. It was just loving detachment for protection.
what you're talking about is grace. That way I could see his beautiful soul and understand that I'm keeping them safe from the parts. I'm keeping them safe from, you know, not him as a soul, but the parts that would have made him up, that he would have had a hard time shedding. Now, it's interesting what I'm seeing in my mind, and it's interesting that you would have said art and musician. So hold on one second. Before you said that, I was feeling like there was a sense of
Mhm.
gratitude for you keeping like heirlooms or things like you keep them in like a sacred place. What I was seeing is almost like a gold frame or like a rust colored frame. Is there something with a gold frame?
He wrote a poem. He was a fisherman. He wrote a poem that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever read, and I'm having it framed in a gold frame.
In a gold frame. Oh, yay. So there we go. Do you see, like, he's with you, he understands, he needs you to know that he's healed. You know, he's healing. And one of the worst parts about that relationship with that one-way mirror is that watching the repercussions, watching the repercussions of their actions. You know how like we would have hurt people and then it just continues to ripple out. I want to talk to folks about what I believe ancestral healing is. So when we hear that term ancestral healing, like I'm healing the ancestral line, I'm going to give you what I believe that looks like. And I'm going to use my family as an example. My mom ran away from home when she was 16. Her parents were pretty abusive. She ran away from home. And I didn't grow up with her parents in my life. I know that what my mom went through turned her into the person that she is today, good, bad, and indifferent. And I know that some of the things that she would have experienced via her father, my grandfather, would have caused her to have her own temper and to have her own problems in that way. When I do my best to identify the causes and I do my best to forgive my grandfather, forgive my mother, do everything that I can to act in the opposite direction. You know what I mean? Like I come from a family, like my parents were bikers. Do you know what I mean? So like really rough and tumble people that had to like claw and make everything for themselves. there was a level of temper. I'm 6'7". I've got Viking blood. I am not going to tell anybody that I don't have a temper. Like I have a temper. So that idea of the horse, right? The horse. I have to keep the horse fed, balanced. A lot of people will hear me talk about going for an old man walk every day. When I go for a walk, what I'm doing is I'm moving my body like my farmers did, my ancestors did. I'm giving my body what it needs because oftentimes when we lash out in anger, it's because we are malnourished on so many different levels. So when I do everything that I can to understand my body, to understand my mind, to understand my upbringing, to do my best with my algebra equation, I'm healing my ancestral line because my grandfather in spirit could be watching his daughter, her son, continue on in these unhealthy patterns, and that would keep him in that place of suffering. Do you understand this, Diane? Okay. So you're doing your own way, you're doing your own method of ancestral healing. You're offering grace to your loved ones, you're understanding cause and effect and all of that, and you still walk in a place of love. So I need to give you that appreciation. Okay. I need to give you that appreciation. I also want to ask too, I know that he was an artist and a musician. Interestingly, did he ever work with wood? So I'm going to give you what I got. I'm going to give you the message that I'm getting. I'm smelling sawdust, okay? Like sawdust, like wood, right? Working with wood. But he's asking you to pick it up. Do you work with wood or carving or like woodworking or anything like that? Because he's asking you to pick something up, to do something of your own.
Maybe it's the painting because I thought about going back to it. I used to paint, but I work in the theater and I'm going to retire in a year and now I'm in culinary school. So, but I could easily pick it up again, painting, because both my parents were painters. So,
Gotcha. So please pick that up. It must be wooden brushes. Do you know what I mean? Those sorts of
yeah,
things. There's
no, yeah,
okay.
wood is part of my you have metal, wood, water, whatever, and I know I'm a wood something.
Hmm.
So that makes sense. And I prefer wood. When I'm cooking, everything has to be teak or wood, even a ladle, it has to be made out of wood. So
I love that. That's interesting. So I put I put honey in my tea today, right? I put honey in my tea today and I used a wooden spoon to get it out because I know that metal counteracts some of the beneficial parts of like honey. So
yeah.
it's a funny thing that I had that. So he's trying to tell you to like lean into the wood, lean into that wood because that's the way they get through that message to me. The symbol of wood is like sawdust. I can smell it. It's also something to the degree of I think like this might be like a studio. Do you know how like there's a workshop like if you were to like work with wood, you'd have a workshop. I think that there's this message of perhaps you need a studio space or your own workshop space. So if there's the idea of like a she shed, right? If there's an idea where you can isolate yourself and, have your artist version of a workshop, I really feel like that's what he's talking about.
Thank
Okay.
you.
You're very
Thank you.
welcome. Thank you for being here. And interestingly, I don't know if you already do this. I want you to celebrate his birthday.
Yeah.
Like when his birthday comes around, light a candle for him, do something. I also want to ask you, do you remember him liking anything with raisins?
Yeah. The Irish soda bread, and you're not supposed to put raisins in it, but we put raisins in it because he liked the raisins.
Ah, okay.
But you're
So
not
for
supposed to put raisins in soda bread.
whatever, whatever. Please, please, please use that. Please get into
Thank
that,
you.
okay?
Thank
Please,
you.
please make that for his birthday and put the raisins in it because I'm getting that distinct sense of raisins. So,
Okay.
um, interestingly, too, I know that you don't need it, and maybe you do because I have to say it. He's telling me that you have his approval. Like you've got to know that he approves of what you're doing, where you're at. You've got to know that there's this distinct sense of pride that he's passing through to you. So if you are in a place of debate or questioning, don't question it. Don't question it. He's really needed me to come through today and talk about the apology and that understanding. He is that example of an algebra equation that everybody else could ever hear and understand. So thank you for being the person to come here and do this with us.
Thank you for saying that last bit. Because I don't care if it wasn't in my life or when he was alive. that I hear it now is
There's a
thank you.
reason why he's passing it through. So just know that, okay? Um, Ha, interestingly, make sure that you're not living too slowly. We talked about him like living too quickly, too fast, like racing too fast. We had that impression of like I'm living too fast. Make sure that make sure that you're not living too slowly. You know what I mean? Like give yourself some excitement, some joie de vivre is the word that I'm hearing. Joie de vivre. Give yourself some joy of life. So whatever your vitamin joy is, make sure that you're getting it, okay?
Yeah.
So thank you.
Okay.
I'm gonna t
I have lived that way most of my life, but in the last 2 years since he passed and my mother passed, I'm in a fallow period. Let's just say that. And I'm just waiting for my next trajectory.
Why don't you put a little bit more effort, like into finding that? The reason being is that, you know, every day that we every day that we live through, we never get it back. So life is short, you know this. However, when you find your joie de vivre, when you find your joy of life, you're taking care of their daughter. You're taking care of their daughter. So you want them to rest in peace, we've got to live in peace. And that's not a life and death thing. That is a relationship thing. I want my husband to be at peace. I have to be at peace. I want my son to be at peace. I have to be at peace. My grandmother in spirit, I want her to be at peace. Her grandson needs to be at peace. This is why I prioritize my peace so much because I know I'm prioritizing my grandmother's peace. So please take
I'm so
that and
grateful,
find.
so grateful, so grateful. Since they both passed, I've always been connected to my grandfather maternal and my maternal grandmother, always connected to them. Always, always. I hear them, they speak to me. And when they both passed, my parents, I was fighting. No, no, you're not going to be the one. You're not going to, no, no. It's always going to be George and Mamie. Nope, nope, you're not taking their place. And I knew I was doing that. I knew I was doing that. And only in the last few days have I thought, I need to be open to them coming and talking and speaking to me. And I really am grateful beyond for you sending me this message. I feel like a whole heavy, heavy wooden thing on top of me has lifted up, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I love that. I want to also ask you too, in terms of because you brought up Mama, and as soon as you mentioned Mama, I saw, do you have an old colander of hers?
It's yes, it's the most ugly thing you've. It's green. It's so ugly, but I can't throw it away.
So that's the evidence, the colander. Like I see an image of like a strainer, like pasta strainer colander,
Yeah,
and you have it of hers. So that shows you that she's there.
thank you.
So absolutely.
I have all her paintings too, so.
Well, keep the colander.
Okay, thank you.
Keep the colander. You're very welcome. I'm gonna take you off spotlight because I got other people coming through to me and I want to like open it up to the next one. So here we go. Okay. All right. So interestingly, here we go. We're going to talk about um oh, what am I doing here? Excuse me as I do this. Okay. The next spirit with me, and this is important too. This is not nearly as heavy as Diane's experience, but there is also a level of like warning and let's talk about awareness. There's a level of education that this woman wants to bring forth. I'm looking for somebody who would have gotten lollipops from their grandmother. So here's an interesting thing. So I'm getting a grandmother. The way she identifies herself is the Munchkins from Wizard of Oz, but the Lollipop Guild, and that's fascinating to me. Like we are the Lollipop Guild. The big lollipops. She's one of three women in spirit. I think that they might have been a little plump, but it feels like one woman and maybe two sisters. But this is like a grandmother, okay? Like I'm giving you a lollipop. I think that you would have gone to her house, gotten sweets, lollipops. But the lollipop means something, and the person that I'm looking for is far too passive. So I'm going to ask somebody here to unmute themselves and come forward. If you would have had a grandmother who would have been like one of three women in spirit looking for you, looking to talk to you. Does anybody have a grandmother that you would have gotten lollipops from? Lollipop Guild. Okay. So there's an Amber raising her hand.
Yes, hi. I'm not 100% sure if this is for me, but my grandmother used to always have sweets at her house for us, and my aunt, who would be her daughter, just passed away, and she used to imitate the Munchkins on the Wizard of Oz doing that Lollipop Guild song. So
This is
I'm not,
for you, Amber.
are you sure? Oh, okay.
Yeah, unless somebody else wants to unmute themselves and talk about that, okay? Like, you got to appreciate my position because I got to, like, there's three women. They're giving me the Lollipop Guild. How random and specific is that, okay? So we're talking to you. And now I'm gonna bring you up on Spotlight. We're gonna have this conversation, okay?
Okay.
Super, super important. So this is important, remember, for you, but for also everybody. So here we are. Spotlight myself on this Zoom thing. Okay. So Amber, there is I want to say a warning, and that's the best word that I can say it, is that and this dovetails very nicely with Diane's reading because you're playing too small. You're playing too small, and there's no judgment behind that. But there is a poem that I have here in my studio in a poster next to where my clients sit, and the poem in poster format is "Our Deepest Fear" by Marianne Williamson. I'd have you look it up. I'm not going to read it here, but the line that you need to hear in it is, "There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel intimidated by you. There's something about them wanting you to go after it, get it, like to be assertive, not, you're far too passive, laid back, you're playing small." And I'm not saying that from a place of judgment, but I think that there is a level of fear or apprehension in some of the things that you want to go after, go do, to live brightly and boldly. This is that message. And it dovetails nicely with Diane's because here we have this man who would have had a level of regret from the actions he did. Now we're talking about regret around actions that we don't do, the chances that we don't take. So when I'm talking about regret, can I ask you, do you know what they mean by saying like you're playing too small, you're too like diminutive, you're too passive? Is there something that you want to do? They're trying to push you to go do it. Is it new school, relationship, new job? Is it something exciting, big and bold? Because that's what they want for you.
Probably buying a house, I would think. Yeah.
Is that what you want?
Yeah. Or, job as well. I mean, I enjoy my job, but I do want to get a house someday.
I'm not, so hold on, I'm gonna like peel that
Okay.
apart. If that's your dream, go after it, run after it. When I was telling Diane that she shouldn't, she's don't need, she doesn't need to live as fast as her dad necessarily, but she has to like live a little bit faster, not live so slow. Not, what I was talking about is being passive, just kind of waiting for things to come to us. This is
Hmm.
very much that attention of go after it, go after it, go after it. Also, I want to ask you because I can't tell from here. Do you have any sort of like eczema, psoriasis, skin conditions?
No,
Okay. D- Do you have any dairy issues?
no, not dairy issues.
This is interesting because I get cottage cheese, which is usually like a flavor or like a symbol of dairy. And then I'm like, for you, you might want to like dial the dairy back a little bit. So that might be for somebody else on this call as well. If somebody has an issue with dairy and they have eczema, psoriasis, anything like that, or perhaps somebody in your life does and they want you to pass that message on to somebody else in the family, I feel like somebody's having a reaction to dairy. Okay.
Okay. Well, my daughter has some skin stuff where she gets, I forget what you call that, dry skin on the scalp. She sees a dermatologist.
Okay. Is she a big dairy eater? Drink milk, cheese,
Yeah, I
dairy.
mean, average. I wouldn't say she overkills.
Okay.
I work with Amber, and that's all she eats at work is
I
yogurt.
yeah, I eat a lot of yogurt.
So maybe this is a message for you, Amber.
Okay. Maybe you have and this is how we know. Okay. So what I'm going to have you do, and thank you for piping in. I don't know who you were, but thank you for piping in there.
Thank you,
But what I want you,
Nicole.
thank you, Nicole. What I want you to do, Amber, is this, please. Pay attention. Just check in with like indigestion, gas bloating, any of those things.
Oh, yes, that stuff I've had issues with. Yes.
If you have issues with that, then you're gonna want to do some food elimination. If you can do 21
Okay.
days, because it takes, generally speaking, 21 days for our body to kind of recover and heal from things it's reacting against. If you can go 21 days without dairy and all of those like indigestion things go down or go away, then you know it's the dairy. Like I'm hugely
Okay.
sensitive to tomatoes. Boy, oh boy, I have tomatoes. Oof. Like I have a big reaction to tomatoes. So, we're all different. All of our bodies are different. I do want you to check in with dairy though, because it feels like
Okay.
like dairy's not so good for you. I also want to
Okay.
talk about this as well, and I don't know. I think this is more important than I realize, and I get this almost. I'm getting this a lot, and I think it's something that really needs to be said. Amber, you're somebody who has reactions to like crappy jewelry. Like if you were to wear like crappy jewelry, you'd have like a
Yep.
green skin or a rash or something. I
Yep.
have to pass this on to you. That's an indication you shouldn't dye your hair. Like,
Yeah,
don't dye.
I don't dye my hair. I did once and I didn't like it.
Okay, don't dye your hair. And this is for anybody that would have reactions to jewelry or junk metal. If you dye your hair, you're absorbing that metal into your body. And I didn't know this, and I just learned this recently. When people get pregnant, doctors ask them not to dye their hair. Well, you would think that would apply when you're not pregnant. If it's bad for your baby, it's bad for the body, it's bad for anything. It's going to continue to be bad. It's just, I think this is especially true for people who have reactions. I'm not sure if it's true for everybody, but I'm getting told that as well. This is interesting too. I'm getting the impression you need to speak up, and I think this is where you need to be more assertive. I think you're somebody who is far too passive. I think that you're caught up in the whole like, I don't want to rock the boat, I don't want to upset the apple cart. You are around unfairness, and you need to speak up. Do you
Okay.
see things that are unfair,
Yeah,
unjust?
sometimes, yeah.
Okay. There's
I
something I
just,
think, and again, this is all about regret. We're looking to reduce the amount of regret. Okay, like because we need to speak up. Do you have grandkids yet?
no, not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
I have a daughter in college though.
Well, who knows what's going to happen? Okay.
Yeah.
Nor getting your hair permed while pregnant either. Thank you, Leola, for chiming in there with that. So again, hair stuff, scalp stuff, absorbing, into our body. That's a big thing. That's also important for your daughter. If your daughter has reactions to jewelry in that way, you've passed that sensitivity on to her. The reason why I asked about your grandkids, potentially grandkids, what have you, I'm seeing like that crystal dish of sweets. Like there's like the crystal dish of sweets. Okay. So make sure that you kind of carry on that tradition, moderate, balanced, be that grandmother that gives the sweets out in terms of that.
That's what
Especially
my
if,
grandmother did. She always had a crystal bowl of sweets.
yeah, that's what I'm seeing. So like that's
Yeah.
where that message is coming through, making sure that you're passing on that tradition. Those You remember that from your grand because that was a token of affection. Yeah, that was like a way that she demonstrated her love. That was one of her love languages. Yes.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Please keep that going in whatever way. Okay. Please keep that going in whatever way. I'd also ask you to do this too. Uh, do your best to send your daughter random memes or videos throughout the day. Like send her. I don't know what this means, but I see her as like the Tasmanian devil. Okay, like a
Okay.
whirling dervish, like she's like probably a lot of things going on, like whirling like a Tasmanian devil. I think.
Yeah.
So when she encounters interpersonal challenges, let's say she gets into relationships or things like that, and then those things feel like they're whirling dervishes or she's in the middle of a tornado, I want you to send her the digital version of a sweet. Okay. I know it sounds
Okay.
strange, but like send her the funny memes, send her tokens of affection digitally. You guys must chat, text, do all of those things. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're constantly sending each other stuff to make each other laugh.
Okay. When remember, like I was talking about vitamin joy, right?
Hmm.
Okay. Should she encounter suffering in the future around interpersonal relationships, fights, breakups, anything like that, as a young person, there's a good chance that those things are in front of her.
Hmm.
Dial up the fun, the dial up the vitamin joy that you are and in the messages that you give to her. Also, interestingly enough, do you remember her being a fan of Lilo and Stitch?
My daughter?
Yes.
Yeah, she used to watch Lilo and Stitch.
You're going to want to keep that in your back pocket.
Okay.
Okay, like Lilo and Stitch, because it's those signs of nostalgia that help give us joy. Okay, so anything that's from her childhood, cartoons, anything like
Oh,
that,
she
fine.
loves that. She loves getting nostalgic with things. Like we're always looking back at things that she used to do or look at as a child. That's very sentimental to both of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
I I do very little work in terms of predicting the future because the future is so wibbly wobbly. I think this is just a recognition that she's young and she has interpersonal relationship trouble ahead of her. I think that's
Hmm.
probably true for anybody of her age. So when those things ramp up and she has conflict or challenges, or it feels like she's in the middle of a tornado, I need those messages of love to go up. Okay. In terms of you two, um, okay, here's a funny thing. Uh, I'm 45. You near my age? Are you part of my generation?
Yes, I'm 48.
48. Okay. Whenever you need a dose of vitamin joy, I have a very funny image that popped into my head. Like your daughter needs Lilo and Stitch. It feels like you need the Dukes of Hazzard. Were you ever a Dukes of Hazzard person?
Oh, but my daughter's father was, and he used to always watch that show. But I never, I watched it along with him sometimes, but I wasn't like a huge fan.
Gotcha. And it's more the not so much the show, but the two brothers in the show to like so whatever whatever you could do for vitamin joy for yourself is super important. I do
Okay.
want to ask because that's sometimes the way that they introduce themselves. Is he in spirit?
No, her,
No.
my daughter's father, no. Mm-mm.
Okay. Because sometimes, like when if I were to get the Dukes of Hazzard, that might be his way of kind of coming into the conversation. So I just wanted to make sure that there was
Yeah.
no potential connection there. Okay. So thank you for that. And uh, you know who the third woman is?
I've been trying to think of who the third woman
Got to be
would
their mom.
be,
You know
and
what I
it
mean?
it could be my grandmother's sister because those two were very close, and she used to come up to Vermont to visit a lot.
Were they?
Um,
There's three of them. Lollipop Guild. This is the
mm,
Lollipop Guild. So if she was close to a sister and the sister's in
she was,
spirit,
yeah.
and they all kind of look alike, because that's what I'm getting. Kind of like
Oh
all
yeah.
they all like look alike. There's three of them in spirit watching over you guys. So just listen to your intuition, listen to the things that you're getting. It's not a surprise to me that you would have been upset with dyeing your hair. Like you wouldn't have liked it, and
Yeah.
that might not necessarily be a cosmetic thing. That might be spirit going, don't do that. Don't do
Mm.
that. That's not healthy for you. Don't do that for your body. That's a message for everybody here to listen. Okay. Ooh. All right. So thank you for this. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate you.
Also, please take care of your lower back if you can. Okay.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I do have lower back pain.
Yeah. It's something that I think would benefit you. And I use it personally when I have back or shoulder or neck problems. And I think
Hmm.
that this would help you and perhaps even your daughter if she has the same. Does she have back stuff too?
I don't think so.
You might have to
She doesn't complain much.
you might have to share this with her, okay?
Okay.
So there is a device called a Shakti mat, Shakti mat. It looks like a little yoga mat, okay? They're
Okay.
like $40 on Amazon. They have little round plastic discs of points, okay?
Hmm.
And those points, think the Hindu bed of nails. Like you lay on it, it will hurt for a minute or two, but I'll tell you what it does is it's like acupressure. It forces blood
Mm.
flow into your muscles and into your joints. I'll lay on mine for 20 minutes and I feel like heaven when I get off of it. So if anybody has neck, shoulder pain, things like that, research the Shakti mat and they're like
Yeah,
40
I'll look
bucks.
that up.
Please do
That's
so.
something I would definitely like. I have a high tolerance for pain when it comes to stuff like that, so that wouldn't bother me.
Okay.
I'll
So it
definitely look into that.
might help you. Also, next year, next year, go to the fair. Okay. Like go to the
Okay.
fair, go to the carnival. I just got an image of you walking around eating popcorn at like a fair. Okay. Like a carnival. No, it's a fair. Are you a fair person and have you denied that?
My grandparents used to take us to the fair all the time.
Is there a connection to popcorn at the fair?
Yep. Yep. We would
Okay.
always go and get popcorn or corn dogs.
Okay. Go get a little bit of that joy in, okay? Because whatever you're doing, whatever work you're having, it's tough. You know, our lives are tough. We have to get the joy in. We got to take care of ourselves. And I
Yeah.
think that joy is going to definitely help with your mental health. You'll also set an example for your daughter to find
Hmm.
that joy and to find that peace. Okay. So thank you. Now we're done. I had to get
Thank
those
you.
things in there.
I appreciate you.
You're very
Thank you.
welcome. Thank you for speaking up. I'm going to take you off spotlight and I'm going to bring
Okay.
forth the next person. Okay. Okay. Now, for everybody here, remember that I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. Okay. So this kind of I don't want to say it echoes back to the first person that was here. Uh, this is a man. He's owning up to his misdeeds. He's coming forth. He's owning up to his misdeeds. And I'm going to describe him to you. He might have played cards because seeing an ace of spades. I'm also hearing jack of all trades. So I don't know what that means. He wasn't a jack of all trades, master of none. I hear jack of all trades, master of some. But I want to talk about like I'm seeing like kind of slicked back hair and like I don't want to say he was skeezy. I will say what I get is that he was manipulative. And what he's saying, like this is somebody who's coming forth who's acknowledging that he would. I don't like to lean into pop psychology, but he's coming forth acknowledging that he was a narcissist. He was an energy vampire. This is somebody I believe this is somebody's ex. I believe this guy would have been handsome. I'm seeing a leather jacket, kind of like Fonzie. Somebody here has an ex who's manipulative, and it's causing you to not live fully. You're carrying pain and trauma of relationships forward into this world, and this man is coming forth and asking you not to. So I'm looking for somebody who suffered from a manipulator, maybe Jack, maybe card playing, Jack of all trades, ace of spades, that sort of thing. Somebody who would have and like cheated, manipulated, like vampire. Like just wanted to get things from you. This is a self-confessed narcissist coming forth, trying to talk to somebody. Now, the person that's here, I believe, would be very reserved in terms of giving themselves over to other people. Very reserved in terms of giving themselves over to other people. So it's a little personal. So let's talk. Anybody here have an ex manipulator in spirit that would have intentionally hurt? You'd be passive. You would not want to have relationships. This is important. Handsome. He was handsome. He could have pulled this off. He could have manipulated people. Somebody is being too safe. Hmm, that's all right. Stephanie, looks like Stephanie's raising her hand. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Yeah,
There we go.
I just want to ask a question because I have an ex. I don't know if he's gone or not. I know we had a meeting a few years back. He moved to California 4 years ago, and I know he was not well. He had a couple of he had open heart surgery, then he had some strokes. He met up with this woman in Missouri when he was driving to California, and he ended up living with her. So, but he has not seen his children, met his grandchildren in 4 years, and very unlike him. And he was very, inside kind of a more quieter person and whatnot, but he cheated, and he was not, I think, a narcissist in his own, I don't know if he's dead or not, or if he's in his own world. You know how when people are not well and they say they sometimes go into spirit world and back if they're not dead yet physically, but they're, I
Okay.
don't know.
So it's interesting because I was like hearing, like when I closed my eyes, I was hearing like a Carolyn, but your last name starts with C-A. I was seeing the C-A. So
And
so it
yeah,
might be you. Can I ask you, did he have slicked back hair like Fonzie?
well, he was very handsome, and he was, his hair was back. His hair was back. I mean, you
His hair
know,
was back and he was handsome.
he's very
He just
handsome. Yeah.
he cheated. Okay, okay, okay,
He
okay.
cheated, but he wasn't a cheater when I was with him, but he cheated when he left. He didn't break up with me. We were still together. But while he was going to do this restaurant venture, he literally had a one night stand with this woman, and she moved, like she drove to California, and that's it. So yeah, he cheated on me. So
Okay. Are you playing it too safe? Are you
yeah,
not going out on relationships? Are you,
yeah,
this
yeah,
is like he's coming forth and he's indicating that he'd hurt you.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
hurt you and
yeah,
you would have been impacted by that. Okay.
yeah. But I don't know if he's dead yet, because I have no clue if he's dead. I
So
mean,
I'm gonna tell you, Stephanie, is he's either dead or he's got Alzheimer's or dementia.
he's got definitely, I think, the dementia, because
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So
He
that's
had,
something
he
that
had, he had a few strokes when I was with him. I brought him to the neurologist, and he was on medication. But when he moved to California, I went to visit him, and he stopped taking his medicine. And his partner was telling me that he was doing crazy things. And then for me, that he completely lost contact kind of with his children and his, it tells me, and he was drinking too much. He wasn't an alcoholic when I knew him and dating him, but then he became drinking 2 bottles a day, and so, which added to the dementia. And yeah.
okay, so everybody just take this with a grain of salt as anything that comes out of my mouth. I'm going to say that what I've experienced is that when people have Alzheimer's, dementia of that sort, they will come through to me like they're dead, like a
Yeah,
spirit. So I think
yeah,
that part of that process is that horse and rider kind of disseminating in that way. Okay.
yeah,
The
yeah.
very slick back hair, very narcissistic in that way of like manipulating and taking and all of that. But
Yes,
it would have impacted you. So this is what this man is coming forth and saying. And this is important for anybody that would have relationships of this sort, whether those people are dead or alive.
right.
We allow, sometimes through no fault of our own, other people and their behaviors to become a variable in our equation. So I'm going to give you an example. Before I
Mm.
met my husband, I was with a world-class narcissist, like an abuser, manipulator, hurt me, hurt me, hurt me.
Right.
And it took me a very long time to get past that, to heal from that. And that
Mhm,
person and their treatment was a variable in my equation for a long time. I had to heal it so I could have the best life.
mhm.
This is why I have to speak to you, because if you are playing too passive, because you're playing too safe,
I'm 4 years
because,
alone since he left. Yeah, yeah,
okay, so I'm going to ask you to consider, please, uh, not like you're a piece of me, but like maybe get out back on the market a little
yeah. I'm
bit.
trying.
Maybe,
I'm trying.
are
I'm
you?
trying. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
trying. I'm trying.
Can I ask you, is there a way for you to, in your own way, in your own time, heal that damage that person would have done to you?
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying. I am.
Please,
Yeah, I am.
because
I am.
again, what people need to know here is that let's take a person like this, a narcissistic abuser, somebody who would have like manipulated and drained people dry and took everything they could from others.
Mm-hmm.
There's a deep sense of frustration, I think, in our world that people like this person wouldn't understand it or see the pain that they would have
Right.
caused
Right.
others. We do when we die. We
Yeah.
do. We dive. We
Yeah.
go through it. We review it. We see it from a higher perspective. So I think it's really important for everybody here to know that the abusers, the manipulators, the energy vampires, the people that inflict pain. Okay,
Yeah.
very, very important. What's the Jack thing about? What's the Ace of Spades thing about? Why is he showing me cards and he's trying to give me that
You know,
information?
the only thing I could tell you is I've had a picture that keeps on popping up because he went to Vegas with my dad we went a few times. And there's a picture of him with my dad's two cousins that they won like, a big kind of jackpot, not huge, but like a couple of thousand. And there's a picture of them in Las Vegas. My dad's got his arm around him. And this picture keeps on popping up on my screen lately. And I was looking at it and I was thinking, what a shame. He had such a nice life, with me and my family and my friends. We were together 16 years. And how he threw it all away. Like he put himself with this woman who's, I don't even think I think she's already with somebody, like she's going back and forth. She's cheating on him too, because she's an alcoholic. And how she completely took him away from his family. Like I was helping him. I'm not saying he's in control of his life when this happened. But, I knew he was not well. And I even tried to get messages to people that were around her at the time to say he needs to be on the medication. If he goes off this medication, he's not going to survive because he had open heart surgery and he had these strokes. So, so I guess maybe that was the cards because he wasn't.
Vegas thing, the
What?
Vegas thing, the
Yeah, the
card thing,
Vegas
the
thing,
Ace of
because we went to
Spades.
Vegas. Yeah, we went to Vegas with my dad, and my dad loved to play, the cards and everything. Yeah.
So, I'm not sure how you're going to be able to validate that information of him being gone or,
No.
having an illness or anything like that. It doesn't matter because there's this apology. So we
Yeah.
started today's session with this distinct apology from a dad. We get grandma and auntie coming in, the Lollipop Guild,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
making sure that we're not too passive. Now we have this manipulator, this narcissist coming in and going, don't let me be the variable in your equation.
Right. Right.
Don't let me be that part because that's regret for them.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
their behavior, their abuse of what they've done, they're able to see it, then it goes,
Right.
what did I do? How did I affect that? How did I diminish that person's? Because there was love between the two of you. There had to have
Yeah.
been.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. He
So,
definitely loved me, and I still love him in a way that I care that he got to this point. I feel, I do keep in touch with his son. I text his son, and yeah, I mean, yeah, it's
okay.
sad, very sad.
Well, watch this. Watch this. If you can find a way safely without, compromising your well-being or your safety to find some sort of love or connection out there, to kind of
Yeah.
get on the
Yeah.
market, do those sorts of things. If you
Yeah.
can do that in a strange, peculiar, wonderful, beautiful way, you're healing him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you see
I
that?
had I
Like,
had a coffee date yesterday, in my building. My doorman tried to set me up with somebody in August, and we never really connected. And then 2 days ago, this guy texted me and said, if you're in the building, if you want to meet for a cup of coffee, and we did. So, and he's a nice man. He lost his wife 5 years ago, and I think we'll go out again. So yeah, but this love I had for this guy, Matt, his name was Matteo Matt. He was Italian. It really took a toll on me. Yeah, took a long time,
okay.
but I'll be all right.
Well, yeah, with time, time heals, but
Yeah.
what are the things that we can do? Like situations like this, or
Right.
reading, or watching
Right.
videos, or therapy, or any of those
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
I'm
I
a big
am. I am.
I'm a big believer in calling it baggage because we can set it down. Okay,
Right.
like it's baggage. We can set it down. Whatever this person would have caused you to have in your heart, your mind, is not something that you were born with. I know with enough application, enough effort, those things can be healed and set down and walked away from. We have to believe that.
Right.
Like I
Yeah.
can't get rid of my height. That's not
Yeah.
baggage.
Yeah.
But my
Yeah.
internalized homophobia was baggage. I
Yeah.
can get rid of that. I picked it
Yeah.
up along the way. I can set it down. And I think that's a very, very distinct message for everybody here.
Yeah.
So please
Yeah.
do that.
Well,
The other thing
yeah.
too, I want to ask you too. I'm not sure what's going on with you in terms of health. I'm being drawn to your wrist. I don't know if you have any carpal tunnel or broken wrist or hurt wrist. Do you have a hurt wrist?
Um, No, but I fell and I broke my ankle and it's healing, but I was, I was hiking and I fell and I broke my wrist. That was in September. And had to cut. I was, taking a little trip with girlfriends, and I had to cut it short, fly back by myself, and but you know what? My wrist, believe it or not, from a previous fall has always been not great anymore. But it's not terrible. But yeah,
Okay. That's an example of the variable in our equation. What can you add to that to heal it? You know what I
right,
mean? What can you
right,
put into that, like a brace or
yeah,
ibuprofen, something to
yeah,
that
yeah.
degree.
Well,
I
I
also
do
want to ask
take.
you,
I am going to physical therapy for my ankle still, so I am trying to help it.
interesting, can I ask you, most of us do you want to like go to Europe, travel, see things in that way?
Well, that's
Can I
where I
ask?
was when I fell.
Ah,
I
okay.
was in the Alps
You were in the Alps.
on a very
Okay.
steep decline, and it started to rain. And yeah, yeah. So it was yeah, it was not. It was a very steep incline in the Dolomites, and I hike with my girlfriends there. But anyway, yeah, I had to fly back the next day.
The question that I have for you though is, do you have a fascination or do you want to visit Portugal?
Oh my God. Well, yeah, my sister went to Portugal last year, so it's one of the places I do want to go visit. Yeah,
Okay. I
yeah.
want you to put some effort into getting there.
Hmm.
Okay. Especially Portugal,
Yeah, yeah.
of
So
all
many
places.
people are going there now. It's one of those places in Europe that people are going to. So yeah. But I usually
Okay.
go to Italy. That's the place I usually go. But it's not far.
Yeah, it's not Italy. It's not Italy. They're asking you to go to Portugal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
very, very important to live your best life. Now, when you live your best life, the people in spirit are watching you live your best life.
Right, right.
This man, Mateo, whether his spirit, whether he's deceased or whether his spirit is just kind of detached from his body in that way,
Yeah.
you want him to be at peace, right?
Yeah.
I know you do.
Well, I
Your
do. No, no,
peace,
no. I care. I
yep,
care.
your peace is his, and
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. I mean, but so I do believe like if I know he's not there mentally anymore because of what people have told me, like his, son says he doesn't even, communicate anymore. So I guess they do go back and forth, right? Into the spirit world.
They can. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, do we do it while we dream? Perhaps, there's
Yeah.
all sorts of different ways for that. What's really important, and I think this is important, like, I don't want to lean into pop psychology. There's a lot of people throwing words around like toxic and,
Right.
trauma and narcissists and I don't want to lean into pop psychology,
Right.
but people understand what a manipulator is. People understand what an energy vampire is, somebody who's just very selfish and very like
Yeah.
self-centered in that way.
Yeah.
What's really important about our time today is that people understand that they figure it out, that
Okay.
there's reasons why they become the way they are. Most
Right.
often, I see these energy vampires or narcissists become the way they are because they have shitty childhoods.
Well, oh, he was definitely had a bad, yeah,
Yeah.
he had no father and his mother was not a good woman, but not educated at all. He came from, mountain town in Italy, very poor. And when he came to America at 8 years old, he'd already been abused by uncles. Like that's how
Yep.
they just knew to hit you, And yeah, so I think he was very bad OCD. And I think that was genetic, of course, but also, like he would buy his shirts. Everything had to be perfect. And the shirts would stay in the closet, Josh, and he wouldn't wear them. They would just stay there. And like I'd say, why don't you put that shirt on? No, he had to know that it was there because he was so poor growing up that he had to know he had it, but he didn't want to use it. It was like completely different than the way I grew up. So,
And again, we started this out by talking about we're not excusing behavior, we're explaining
right,
it.
right,
And so
right,
we go
right.
through that life review, we go through that understanding. I also want to bring up being prompted to a couple of things. Did this man get you earrings? I'm being drawn to your earrings, and it feels like he needs you to wear his earrings.
He gave me he gave me some beautiful earrings and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not
Wear those,
these,
okay?
but he gave
Right.
me, yes, he gave
He's
me
asking you to
beautiful,
wear
he
those
gave me
earrings.
beautiful aquamarine, which is my birthstone, March, and a necklace. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He gave me a few nice things, but he tortured me at the end. So for 4 years, he was trying to
Yep.
be, I think he was trying to be something he couldn't be. And at the end, I think he just ran away from everybody and, you know, trying to be
What,
something he couldn't be.
what we have is another example of grace, you know,
Yeah.
understanding people
Yeah.
are the way they are. I
Yeah.
also want to bring up something that I call the rabid dog philosophy. Okay. Rabies, let's say an animal like a dog gets rabies.
Yeah.
Okay. We can have sympathy for that animal because that, you know, it had a variable in its equation. It became its
Mhm.
way. We got to have sympathy, compassion for that, but we
Right.
keep ourselves safe from it.
Right. Right.
So there are a ton of people in our life, and I think that Diane would have talked about this in the beginning where she says detached love.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like the rabid dog philosophy there, where
Mhm.
I understand that this person is the way they are. I understand that a dog has rabies, but I'm not going to open up the door because I have compassion for the animal. I'm not going to let
Right.
that rabid animal into my house. So
Right.
that's
Right.
another analogy that we have to lean into to go, okay, we can understand them. We can have compassion and grace for them, but we do not have to become a victim to them, nor do we have to become a victim to the repercussions of their actions.
Mm-hmm.
Those
Yeah.
pains and traumas, they don't have to stay unhealed, that we can
Right.
work through them.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
So we are at the end of our time today. We've
Mhm.
talked to three people. We've had a big overarching theme. I hope people are able to take something away from this, lay over the messages that were shared today and their own experiences. If you know somebody that could relate to any of the philosophies that were shared today, when this episode is live and up, please share it with your loved ones. Let them listen to it, let
Okay.
them watch it. Super important for everybody to kind of dial into that wisdom that spirit wants us to sort of calibrate our lives, to find peace, to find balance, to find wellness, because we have only one life to live. We're all going to die eventually. And while we're here, we should laugh and love. The Die, Laugh, Love podcast. So, with that being said, I do want to say that this episode was sponsored by myself. No, that if anybody wants a reading, tarot reading, one-on-one mediumship reading, you can go to my website and you can get that. I also want to say, I've had some people ask me if they can like Venmo me money for these episodes to like tip me. I don't even want to share that information. If people feel the need to support me, share my stuff, share the stuff out, share it with your loved ones, buy a reading, do whatever on my website, what have you. I don't want any money for these episodes. These are completely free, and I hope that people get information out of them that they need. This episode will
Thank
be
you,
live
John.
on YouTube and all of your favorite podcast providers later tonight. So thank you for being here, and I will see everybody next week. 3
Bye.
o'clock.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye.